Welcome to Paul's Passive House. What you're looking at is a picture of the south side of my house. I know, it's pretty. But if you know anything about passive house design, then you know how important it is to shade. Designing shade for your house can greatly improve your energy efficiency. And if you have the means to install overhangs, you also get the added benefit of water protection. Keeping water away from your windows especially is key to avoiding infiltration. These overhangs were cheap. I think these are about $120 from Home Depot. They're polycarbonate and plastic, and they screw into the framing. I've had them for under a year, and so far they're surviving quite well, but I'm not sure how long they're going to last. In order to design and install these overhangs, I used this tool. It's an online web tool called susdesign.com/tools/PHP. There you can go to the overhang analysis tool and map out exactly where you should install your overhang to provide the shade you're looking for all year round. That includes minimal shade in the winter and maximal shade in the summer. Depending on where you live, you can type in your coordinates and it will show you exactly how high and how long, or how wide and how deep your overhang needs to be in order to fully shade your window in the summer and allow sun to shine through the window in the winter. This is what the tool showed me my shade would be in July. This is a picture of the shade at the exact time I calculated in the tool in July. Notice how dead on it is. It's really a fantastic tool for you to use. These overhangs only provide 60% shade, which means there's still quite a lot of sunshine getting in. Now take a look at this picture that was taken just a few days ago in January. Notice how I have all full sun on these windows, which is what I need to be more energy efficient. But in July, I'm in full shade, which again is what I need to be fully efficient. Now, you don't need a tool to plan for deep shade. All you need is some ingenuity and a tarp. They sell 90% and 95% shade tarps online, or you can go to your local retailer. I prefer the tarps that have reflective aluminum on one side to redirect the sun's light back out into space. This is a picture of a 16 by 20 foot tarp that I installed over my work area in July while I was installing my siding. Now, on this particular day, it was 101 degrees. However, in the shade of this tarp, the concrete was only 86 degrees. Think about that for a moment. 86 degrees. That's cooler than my body temperature, meaning if I were to take off my shirt and lay on this concrete, it would feel cool to the touch. It would feel cool on my skin. Now, I didn't do that, but that's incredibly valuable, especially when you consider that if I was to remove this tarp and just let the sun shine onto this concrete, that concrete would have been closer to 120 degrees, which would be hot to the touch, scalding. Then if you notice this window and the fact that my addition is funneling air into that window, you see the benefit of creating a deep shade well. That's what I'm calling this. This is a shade well. Now, based on the configuration of my house, the wind generally blows from west to east, and this is a west-facing window. The addition, where you see the green zip system sheathing, is facing north, and the addition essentially catches air and pushes it, funnels it through that window. Now, that air could either be heated by 120 degree concrete, or it can be cooled by 86 degree concrete. Installing a deep shade well here as a strategy for cooling my house during the summer, increases my energy efficiency, and helped to keep the indoor air temperature low. Now, it would have been even better had I implemented a swamp cooler or a water feature in this deep shade well, or if I had increased the length of the shade. So this is 16 by 20. If I had made it 16 by 40, it would be an even deeper shade well. Now, when I talk about deep shade, I'm talking about 90% shade plus. You want it as dark as possible underneath the shade sail. That will effectively cool the air below the tarp and cool the ground. And if the ground is a thermal mass, like a pad of concrete, it will make the air even cooler still. For about $100 is what this shade sail costs. I can effectively cool my house, and I can effectively cool my backyard. I could sit back here and drink pina coladas if I wanted to, instead of working all day and installing siding, and it would be a cool 86 degrees. And that's without any water feature. That's without another 20 feet of shade sail. That's just as is. If you look real close, you can see my dog. He's sitting on some patio furniture padding in the background there, and he's sitting back there because it's cool. It feels good. Again, this is a 100-degree day. Now, if you look around the south side of my house, I installed an 8-foot by 24-foot shade sail. This shade sail changed the interior temperature of my addition from 96 degrees all the way down to 92 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot, and admittedly, it's not. But you have to understand, at this point in the retrofit, I have no insulation in the attic. So the attic is open, the ceiling has been dropped, and the heat is just radiating down from the roof into my addition. But using just a shade sail just on the south side of my addition, I was able to lower the temperature by more than 5 degrees. And that's not nothing. That can take a completely unbearable indoor temperature and turn it into something at least conceivable, although the 90s is obviously still too hot. Now, once my addition is fully sealed and fully insulated, my suspicion is that this shade sail will keep my addition somewhere between 8 and 12 degrees cooler than it normally would be without that shade sail. Don't worry, I'll conduct some tests and I'll let you know. Here is the website again. If you want to go to it, I'll put a link in the description, and I'll also put a link on the screen somewhere so that you can click on it however you like to click on things. You should go to this website, you should use this tool, and you should design and plan shade for your house. Especially if you don't have overhangs, you should install some, like the cheap ones I installed. And even if you do have overhangs, think about using shade sails. Think about how you could install shade sails on your property to cool the air around your house. Now, let's say I went crazy and I bought 10 shade sails. That's $1,000, and I set them up all the way around my house, except for the north side. That would lower the temperature around my entire house on a 101-degree day down to 86 degrees. Now that is some real benefit. And shade sails are cheap. Now, this shade sail lasted a full season. We get pretty windy here in Colorado, so I suspect I'll have to replace it sometime in the middle of next season. But if you can imagine a full summer's worth of 20-degree cooler shade and expand that out to the rest of the house, you could really gain some serious benefit. Well, now that I've finished this episode's opener, let's get into what I know you've all been waiting for, this god-awful corner again. We're still in this corner. Only now, I'm using some construction adhesive to secure this gasket. And in just a few seconds, I'm going to bring the camera in closely so that you can see that I've cut 3 individual holes into this gasket and labeled them with the amperage of each wire. I'm one of those people, I kind of want to know, what's going on, so I do stuff like this. But I just left the wires out. I did connect the one so that I'd have electricity in here. And now, of course, we're back in the wintertime. So, of course, it's not 101 degrees anymore. The introduction to this episode is over. We're back in the wintertime. And I am screwing in 4-inch screws into this zip system sheathing to secure it into its final position. Here we are taking a look at the west side of the addition. I had not yet at this point secured the top of this zip system. So I had done all the 4x8 sheets that line the bottom of this addition, but I had not secured the top. So that's what I'm doing now. And if you love watching me screw in screws, then you're in luck. Now, normally it's more fun to watch somebody screw, or at least in my experience it is. But in this case, it's rather boring. This is about as terrible a screw as it gets. And I've had some bad screws in my day. In all seriousness, it's important that you put in as many screws as the manufacturer calls for in order to ensure that these are secure. Not just to secure the framing underneath and to keep it from falling over in the wind, but also to ensure that none of this zip system comes flying off. Once I'm done screwing in all the screws, I mark the walls, and then it's time to install the zip system flashing, which is the tape. Now, I did some calculations. As it turns out, the tape is much, much cheaper than installing liquid flashing. In certain instances, you have to install liquid flashing. It's just more useful in some cases than the tape. But if you can use the tape, you always should. The price per linear foot of zip system flashing tape is a fraction of the price of the zip system liquid flashing. You'll see in part of this episode and future episodes that I end up using quite a lot of the liquid flashing. But again, the tape is a superior product as far as cost is concerned. Now, you may notice that I have left a gap at the bottom. That is because I have a bug screen. You can barely see it if you look at the very bottom of the zip system sheathing. There is a metal screen down there. That's a bug screen. Now, my initial design called for a bug screen to be incorporated into the bottom of the zip system sheathing in order to keep out bugs and rodents and so on. But as time progressed, I changed my design and went a different route. So I actually removed that bug screening and then filled in the gaps at the bottom where the tape is. You'll see me address that at another future episode. Now that I'm working on that corner, you can see that there's a fair amount of the polyiso exposed to the elements there on the underside of the zip. So I'm using the, I think it's 8-inch or it might be 6-inch zip system flashing tape that's stretchy. It's called flex tape. And you can really bend it and stretch it and pull it. It stretches a really long way. I didn't need to stretch it very long to get it across this gap, but once I did put it across, man, did it hold nicely and it kept well. So it's a shortened episode. I want to thank you all for watching, and please tune in for the next one. If you'd like a free energy efficiency consultation, please email me at paulspassivehouse@gmail.com.